Hello, Biola Capstone class. Hope you guys are doing well. Um, we are going to first do a recording based on the last few weeks worth of feedback for this class. And then I'm going to present to you another video based on our investment planning module. Um, but before we get there, I do want to spend a little bit of time going over some housekeeping things that we need to get taken care of. So the most pressing thing actually is a CFP mock exam um, that is accounted as a grade for you guys. Um, Meaning if you do it, you will get a grade. Um, that is coming due, I believe, the Wednesday night of this week. Um, And so part of a component for this class is that you guys take a mock exam. I know Dr. Annette has had a good long-standing relationship with the test prep company Zahn. And so I'm going to be asking you to follow the instructions that we have laid out, as well as, if you could, start thinking ahead a little bit to next week, right? So next Monday, we will be, let me think about this. Yeah, that'll be the day after Easter. I'm gonna be asking you guys to jump on at a different time. It'll be noon your time to go over your test with a Zahn representative. And so we have a gentleman named Rodney who's going to be coming on and speaking with us. And so it's important to me that we have some students who are forward facing on the camera. I don't want to be the only one on there, of course. And it would be nice, for him to be able to get a little bit of interaction with you. I think he can give an overview of things. Um, that I could, of course, ask some questions to help kind of prompt things, but I do want some students in there. And so I've actually added a 1 point assignment where I ask you to RSVP. Let me see. Um, my gosh, I'm in the wrong. Hold on a second. So yeah, I ask you to RSVP, just saying yes, I can attend or no, I can not attend. Um, so that would be here. And so yeah, if you could do that before the some point this week, that would be great. Again, the announcement on the details in order to actually take the exam um, are found here. And yeah, so holler if you have questions along the way. Um, Follow the link, and then at that point, you put your information in here and take it. It does come in some different sections, but yeah, it's meant to be a challenging option for you. That's going to give us some hopefully good feedback, understanding where you're at, what that CFP exam would look like. Um, okay, so the first thing I want to do in this video is I want you to start thinking about the edits that you need to make moving forward. And so a big, as I've been to talk to about it almost every class because it bears mentioning over and over that I will expect you guys to take the details, the feedback I've given you in your assignments, and be able to apply it to what we're dealing with here. Um, sorry, uh, in your final presentation. Okay. All right. So let's go back and first discuss a little bit of cash flow planning. Um, and then I want to talk a little bit about our tax planning. This week you have estate planning coming due, and so that'll be something that you guys will be doing pretty soon. So we load up my deal here, a new whiteboard. All right. So let's start today with our cash flow planning. I've almost finished grading all of those. I've done the initial intake documents, but have yet to do cash flow information on here, right? So just kind of want to run down a little bit of information that I think has come up time and time again. So one thing that I've seen would be looking into the cash flow need, right? So you've got money in and you've got money out. And I know this sounds like an oversimplification, but in the world of financial planning, a lot of what I do in plan building is built around the idea of helping you guys figure out with a client, helping them figure out if they are cash flow positive or cash flow negative. And it's not easy in our world today to figure that out. And the reason why I say that is because we have debt tools that sometimes people use. We've got all these other components of uh, really our world, our financial world, that makes that a little bit more complicated. All right, so on a monthly basis, right, we have money coming in from our W-2 employment. There's no side hustles in this scenario. There is no self-employment income or anything like that, but we also do see some interest being paid to them, I think to the tune of $3,500 a year. And then we would be also looking at potential for sale from their non-retirement account, right? So they have some funds held in a non-retirement that has a mix of short-term bonds, but also ExxonMobil. So it does mention that they've been selling that over the course of time when needed, when needing some extra cash flow. And that matters, right? Because once we take our net positives, then we have to take our subtractions and, of course, our deductions from gross, okay, to net, all right, would be including our taxes. So a lot of people, of course, including your federal taxes and your state taxes. But what they did not do a good job of is FICA. So you do remember the 17 point or 7.65%. That's to Medicare and Social Security that needs to come out on the employee side since they're W-2. That also means that their employer is matching that and paying that on their behalf. And then California taxes. Okay. Then after that, we also need to, before we get the net income, factor in withholdings for deductions from paychecks, right? So this could include healthcare, if sometimes that comes out of pocket, HSA, FSA. Um, the biggest one is usually the 401k deduction. Okay. And so they do have some deductions there. And then after that, we get our net income, right? So this is what we see out of our paycheck coming to us on a monthly basis. That number, okay, then needs to be subtracted from our living expenses, our debt payments. Debt payments typically are pretty easy to figure, right? Because they flow on a monthly basis. And by the way, I love cash flows to show as monthly. Okay, so keep that in mind. But all that being said, we should eventually end up with a net positive or a net negative number. Okay, the big one, really, honestly, is the living expense, right? Because that living expense is something that most people don't know about. Most people don't do budgets, let's be honest. I've talked about that before. But we can, in a roundabout way, figure out just how much they have coming in, coming out, right? And we do that by figuring up a few other things. And so we like to say if someone has asked, just asking a question of a client, right? On a monthly basis, do you see the money in your bank savings position or your checking account going up or going down, right? That question is a good cue for me to help me understand if a client is saving a little more or not. Now, the challenge is, right, is that we all oftentimes have shocks to the system on a yearly basis that do mess with that number. You, on a monthly basis, might see your savings go up only to see one big event, healthcare emergency, home emergency, new car need, car maintenance need, kids' new braces. There's a lot of things that can affect that. And so capturing shocks, hey, in what recent months, how much has my financial position changed? Asking that question to the client is also super helpful for this kind of stuff we're talking about. All that being said, if we see they have a large bank position, sometimes we can assume that they actually spend less than what they make, right? If we see that they're able to save into outside places, okay, maybe towards goals like 529s for the kids or UTMAs, kid savings. If they're able to save into like Roth IRAs, if they're able to save into a taxable account, okay, and this is not money that's coming to them from outside sources, it's actually coming to them from their paycheck. Those are all indications that they have a positive net cash flow and are allocating it, right? And compartmentalizing it and doing mental accounting to send it to different vehicles for the future. But this negative one, right? The negative comes whenever you have zero in the bank, your emergency fund dwindles. Every once in a while, you also see that it has credit card debt, or sometimes you see different types of credit cards, right? Department stores are also sometimes more troubling to me than some other types of credit cards, right? Because you can usually tell, right, what type of store it is based on if they're actually using that for needs or wants. Sometimes you can even figure out by what type of credit card someone has if it's Christmas that they've bought on the credit card. But then you also have these other debts, right? Like sometimes you have in our area, it seems like rural area, a lot of times they've got like a debt on a mower that, they were able to get a line of credit on or whatever the case is. So anyway, all that being said, that is a big deal. And in this situation, in this case, right, there is a glaring challenge that we see them in a negative net cash flow basis on a monthly basis. They're able to get away from it now, okay, because they simply are taking money out of their taxable account, okay, to fund their life. All right. And you can only do that so much, where they got like 80 something thousand dollars left over in that account. And so, again, this brings me up to a next point, okay, that as we build out a plan, it is our job to show them a pre-recommendation status where they are, and then build out recommendations and incentivize that we do the recommendation by helping them understand what can happen in their plan post-recommendation. Human behavior needs this, right? We need to be able to see where we are, what's troublesome, what's good, continue doing the good, change the troublesome, and now understand just how great of a financial position you can be in the future. Right. And so that's really what I'm looking for as you build out these recommendation plans, whether it's estate planning, investment planning, tax planning, right? Cash flow planning. Are you able to clearly tell the client, this is where you are, this is what's troublesome, this is what we recommend you change, and let's look and see how healthy your financial position can be if you just do that over the course of a timeline, right? What's the 1 month effect? What's the 6 month effect? What's the 1 year effect? What's the 5 year effect? And some of these are going to be playing out in the 5 year, right? If you make a recommendation now, hey, we need to do something now, right? Sometimes that's the case. I oftentimes will deal with retirees, right, who have credit card debt and are now over age 59 and a half and have access without penalty to their retirement savings. So they'll come in, they've got like 30K in credit card debt, and then they have 800K in their retirement savings. So that is an instant recommendation. There is no need to keep this balance when you have access to this, right? Especially if you're already retired, there's not even like a increase in tax obligation for a distribution plus income. You know what I mean? You're not laying on top of income potentially. But even if you are, it's still worth it, right? Credit card debt will eat you alive. You will end up being healthier financially if you do that. And what happens is that's like the now recommendation. Meet with him just like a month later, and they're like, wow, I have so much more free cash flow, right? Why do I have so much free cash flow? Well, because that credit card debt, not only the service cost that you're paying to Amex, Discover, Chase, right? But also that monthly flow frees up, right? And all of a sudden the client realizes, wow, I'm in a better, healthier place, right? And so that's a 1 month recommendation, a 5 year recommendation, right? Some things are going to play out for another 30 years if you think about like, hey, we need to tax free growth on a Roth retirement account to try to get you to the end of the road. And that might be the case, of course, for the Lopez's. All right, so keep that all that stuff in mind. Um, Talking about the next section, right, which would be tax planning. And I'm also going to do a little review of estate planning. And so you guys hopefully feel good, like you feel well resourced as we kind of go through things, because I don't know if you knew this, but like you can watch some older videos from Dr. Annette's that are nestled inside the assignment view. You can watch my views or my assignments, whichever my videos, which I post to the announcements on a weekly basis. All right. And then I also have some old videos from the last time I taught this class that you can watch with a little more student interaction. So all that being said, though, right? Like, um, put all these pieces together, take my comments, make adjustments. You guys should be in a good place as you consider the final finished product, right? Which is what we're working towards, is a really good financial plan. Some of us just need to put things in better order, right? Just the structure of our plan is a little bit all over the place. Other people do a really good job with the structure. It's just the actual content, recommendations, things that it might be missing. Okay. So tax planning, and note that like I usually do this kind of stuff after we've already went over it as a class. So you've given your first attempt at tax planning that was due this last week. Um, Now I want to talk a little bit more about what numbers we're working with. That it's, if you go back and you make the adjustments, it's a matter of time, probably not, honestly, like um, going to be that much more effort if you just watch this video. Okay, so the 1040, okay, which we're doing our federal taxes, all right, takes our gross income, okay, and so do we have deductions above the line to get us to our AGI, adjusted gross income. And then we have deductions below the line. Okay. And there is where we get this fun game of figuring up our standard deduction versus itemization. Then after that, we get to the number of taxable income. With the taxable income, you actually have to go to the tax tables found on the 1040 to figure up our tax obligation. And then we subtract what we've already had withheld from that to get a refund or an amount owed. So that whole process, for some reason, is so intimidating and so scary to so many people. So if you can speak with confidence about taxes, you can enjoy at least knowing that you can help people out with this. It's not really that hard. Okay. Personal income tax planning is a very, very simple process. Okay, the challenge is that we have sometimes unknowns. Okay, and so the unknown in this situation is if we're going to be working with the 24 tax year or the 25 tax year. I think this is a great illustration on just the changes that can be made in a plan over the course of the year, right? While taxes might not be complex, you do have to follow the changes because every year there are changes, okay? The big beautiful bill, okay, whoops, I forgot to be, came out in July that highlighted the changes to taxes for the 25 and 26 year. But even 24 to 25, okay, we still have an increase in I'm sorry, that would have been the big beautiful bill would have been for 24, 25. You got the child tax deduction, which went up a little bit, $200 per kid. Okay. We have the biggest one, which would be the salt tax limits. Okay. And so that had been capped at 10%. Okay, that was moved up to 40%. That's a big deal for you Californians. All right. And then the other, change which I've been dealing with a lot with is age 65 plus seniors now get an additional amount added, okay, to their deduction. Their standard, if they take the standard deduction, they get an additional, I think it's $3,000 per person. And so that affects them as well. Okay, now in 26, we're not dealing with 26 right now, but just proof showing you all the changes that are being made, right? We actually have an additional giving deduction. Okay. You can actually give the first couple $1,000 that you give to a charitable organization that can be counted as a deduction, not as an addition to your itemization, right? So itemizing, not very many people are able to itemize. Okay. Um, And so this is actually good, I think, right? Because it gives us a chance, okay, if we're taking the standard deduction, to still have some money that can go for giving to help towards offset tax obligation. Student loans and car loans. And by the way, I would say, before I get there, right, this giving deduction is a great nudge for the Lopez's. And I like that word nudge because that's what we're doing. Right? We are helping our clients and nudging them toward the right thing. And in this situation, there are a lot of options, or should I say, a lot of opportunities for us to nudge our client, okay, in the giving column. Not only that, they have a desire, right? And if they have a desire, what we need to do is highlight for them just the improvement in their plan, all right, and the way that God can work in their hearts through giving. All right, so all that being said, there was one other 26 change, and that is student loans and car loans are supposed to have an option probably for the interest to be included in our itemization schedule. I'm not too sure. I haven't heard more details yet about that. Well, being said, taxes change on a yearly basis, right? So you just have to keep up with it. If you're able to keep up with it, tax planning can be a really big feather in your cap to be able to help clients out with, right? So that being said, um, I'm going to close the whiteboard for a little bit because I do want to show you my tax prep information here. Where is it? I had created a holistic plan analysis for the Lopez household. I thought you might be interested in seeing how that all looks. And so let me pull that up for you. Give me a second. But what's nice about holistic plan is it makes it look easy. Okay. And there are places where we have some differing numbers than you guys do in your plans. I don't think anyone came to the exact same number as me. I'll explain why. Okay. And so a lot of times I'm working with a broad paintbrush trying to figure out if you're in the ballpark with me. And so let's look at this. All right. So wages after 401k withholdings. Okay. Notice this is kind of like our 1040 plan here. All right. You can follow. We've got married filing jointly. We've got two dependents, Tonya and I always want to say Tanya. Um, Lopez, Tiana. 201,800 after 401k withholdings. 3,500 is flowing to them in interest that they're receiving from their taxable non-retirement accounts. Okay. One aspect of the plan that we don't have full information on is that they have been liquidating that taxable account in order to fund life. Okay. So those can be taken either from one of two places because we know it's held in short-term treasury bonds and we know it's held in ExxonMobil and we're given the capital gains rates for ExxonMobil. Okay. We're given that they have only $7,500 in cost basis on ExxonMobil. All right. Whereas the account value is 42,500, which means our cost, or excuse me, our capital gains is 35,000 in the account. But we're not saying that they're going to liquidate that whole holding this upcoming year. As a matter of fact, we don't know. That's incomplete information for the client. We do know that they haven't really been happy with their tax prep situation. And part of that might be because they have been liquidating this account and hitting a tax event every time that they choose to sell some ExxonMobil shares. So if they sell from the short-term treasuries, there's no gain in that, right? It does produce interest, which is reflected in this $3,500 amount here. Also, those ExxonMobil dividends would be flowing here, but we kind of assume with how things are worded that it's probably maybe stated in this interest. All right. Now there would be a difference if it's qualified difference dividends with long-term holdings or not qualified, right? Nonetheless, let's just simplify things here because that's not the only assumption we have to make. The other assumption is if we want to show capital gains. All right. So if we don't, all right, let's just move down the spreadsheet a little bit. We don't show capital gains. They don't liquidate any ExxonMobil shares. All right. We come to standard versus itemized deductions. Okay. A few people have chosen to take the standard deduction. In the schedule here, we are showing that you would want to take the itemized deduction. Okay. And the reason is that there will be two different numbers here, okay, because of the SALT cap. So those of you who are using 2024 figures, SALT cap would be maxed out at 10%, or sorry, 10,000. Moving forward in 25, this last tax year, it was 40. All right. So that's held in this number. You also have our real estate tax, okay, to get us, and then our mortgage interest here, okay. So these two combined shows up here in this one here, okay. So I've seen a lot of standard deductions in the low 50s, all right, or sorry, itemized deductions in the low 50s. That would be the case if you chose the 2024 tax year. If you chose the 25 tax year, it would be this number. Very few people have, a few of them do, but not many have this number chosen. All that being said, right, we're able to subtract that from our adjusted gross income to arrive at our taxable income of 136,286. Now remember, taxes are kind of worked on a marginal scale. So we can't just assume this is going to be taxed at 22% because even though the next dollar we make in that year would be taxed at 22%, our effective tax rate is actually only at 10.9% because we flow through not only the deductions, but also the credit, but also we were able to subtract or work through the 10 and 12% tax brackets in a given year. All right. We need to add the child tax credit. Again, this might be $400 different, but dependent upon the year. And then the dependent care credit can be used for the younger of their children. $3,000, right? $600 is able to be applied there. Okay. So all that being said, we roll it. We get to a point where we see our total tax obligation, not including FICA, $14,811. We think we've withheld close to, what is it, 28,000. And so they're going to get one hefty tax refund back. My number here, okay, shows that they're going to get more tax refund back than any of your numbers did as a class. Okay. Some of you assume they liquidate all of their ExxonMobil shares. Okay. And if they did that, okay, we would see 35,000 in gains. You see that reflected here. Okay, total tax still of 20,000. If we change the tax year to 2024, and we roll it again, we'll see their total tax of 24,647 if we include the shares, which I actually don't think, right? I would not include all of the shares being liquidated. Matter of fact, my recommendation to the client is that they need to make some changes in their personal finance life so that they aren't liquidating those shares because in many ways they have substantial income. They should be able to live off that without robbing Peter to pay Paul kind of deal, right? So 2024 tax year would be close to $19,300. So you can see the difference in tax years, right? The big beautiful bill might have done wonderful work for people's personal finances because you can see the change in tax obligation. And most of this is honestly because of that change in the SALT cap. Okay. But you can also see that we live in a world of imperfect information sometimes. I think Dr. Annette builds out these plans in a way where he's not going to give you and hand you every single little piece of information out there because it's going to be our job to make a best effort assumption when need be to figure things out to put it all together. Okay. Um, I oftentimes build plans by looking at paycheck stubs and last year's taxes for clients and W-2s. And yet still, inevitably, there's going to be a little piece of information that we don't have. And so you can click that piece of the puzzle in later when you meet with them in a planning meeting, right? But nonetheless, a lot of times you still have to move forward with less information than what you'd want. And that's kind of a theme there, right? So all that being said, right, in the end, it's your job to still build out the plan. And that's where we see these differences in numbers on taxes, right? Some people are like, well, there has to be a final right answer. And it's like, yeah, there is a final right answer, right? But is it okay if you're off a little bit? Yeah. I mean, and we'll show you those changes as I kind of go through the grading for that. So I hope to wrap up the cash flow planning and the tax planning here in the upcoming days. Some short words on estate planning, which is due tomorrow night, right? Some things to think about as you kind of work through these worksheets would be like um, they just blink at you. That's the comment he gives. So that we need to start with square one. Like, what is estate planning and why is it valuable? Why do you need it as a younger couple looking to, build out a financial plan? And this would be something that, I mean, personally speaking, as I would think about it, I would want to make sure things are in order in case something were to happen to them, that a will would dictate where the kids are being taken care of. But something that probably big chunks and portions I'm working with them in the future um, on, right? Not to say that they're not important, right? Because there are some things like we have ownership of a second home and a custodial account for the children in Nutma. Is that good? Is that bad? Is that loss of asset control? Or you think about like the age of majority in California, which is 18. I think it could be set later. In this case, they might be able to set it at 25. But is that what they want? And if it's in a custodial account, is that shared between the two kids? And if that is the case, their age gap might play into a situation that could be challenging for the whole family, right? With how it's structured. So that's one thing. And then the other aspects of estate planning, of course, would be checking in to make sure they have a will. Is trust planning recommended or not? Is this going to be, a situation even as they build out their retirement plan that they're going to be able to hand off things over to their kids in the most effective and meaningful and purposeful ways. All right, so I'm going to stop there. Again, I've been receiving text messages and emails at my Gmail account from a lot of students. I really like that. I try to respond back as quickly as I can. So I hope you're able to use me as a resource as you build out this week's stuff. You've got estate planning due coming up in the next 24 hours, and then you've got we're going to turn the corner on investment planning. I'm going to clip my YouTube video from investment planning and I think I wanted you guys to go and watch that. It's going to be really, I think, probably a good summation of what investments are all about. And there's a lot of assumptions out there that we are just investment people. And planners like to plan. Planners love to emphasize the importance of planning, not the importance of just account management, portfolio management. And so, that being said, though, right, there's a lot of ways in which we can go in investment planning that helps us align people's investments with their goals and objections and visions and desires moving forward, right? And so that becomes our chief end. It's not about always collecting more, about seeing higher investment returns, about finding the next big stock. Um, and uh, and that can show, right? When you build out plans with clients in a meaningful way, um, they're not trying to make decisions based on whims of the market. And so we've currently seen this like downturn from the Iranian conflict that's drawn down markets now. I think we're down in correction territory. Like the S&P is down 10% from its high. Year to date, probably still down 7%. And clients that have plans understand that we don't look for short-term goals. So at least this is our strategy at our firm, and what I firmly believe is if you need money out of an account in the next year or two, then we don't try to go out and collect more and more growth on an account with exposure to the market. But those accounts that are out there for long-term goals and long-term purposes, we allow them to continue to have the growth of a application in the market, right? So when we do have this downturn, we have to remind clients that true risk is not volatility. Matter of fact, that's just sometimes a premium, all right? That's the cost of admission to be in equities and to grow a well-rounded investment portfolio. And that diversification key is important, right? Tony Lopez likes stocks. He likes watching Jim Cramer Mad Money. But is he diversified, and does he hold, holdings that are going to help him throughout the long haul? Or is he just kind of at random times got interested in the market, and the interest, it comes and it goes? But all that being said, right, if you see a downturn, it is actually locking in losses, needing money when it's not there, right? That is my definition of risk. And so that is when you kind of start reorienting how you do investments, because now we can, if we know we don't need money in 10 years, you better believe we'll give it market exposure to the fullest bit. If we know we need money in a year or two, we shouldn't have that expectation it's going to be in the market, right? Because who knows what that next year looks like. Odds are that it would be up, but not a guarantee, right? So just keep that in mind as you do a little portfolio analysis of where they're at in their place. We appreciate you guys, and looking forward to the continuing to see good work from you. Thanks. Bye.